Hello everyone. Welcome to our Power 100 webinars. I'm Alberto Ravagni from InfraPrime. In this webinar, Susanna Kass, Lou Shedl, and myself will discuss a unique initiative to build a net zero data center park in Virginia Beach. Susanna Kass is co-founder of InfraPrime, member of Climate 50, data center advisor to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Program, Energy Fellow at Stanford University, and recently she had the privilege to be elected in the Power 100 Global Index of the most influential people in the wholesale carrier community. Louis Shedl has over 45 years of experience in information and communications technology development as a successful business leader and infrastructure developer. Liu served as a strategic advisor to the US Department of Defense, the US Agency for International Development, the World Bank, and the United Nations Special Program for the Economies of Central Asia. In addition, Liu served as a member of the Mission Assurance and Critical Infrastructure Protection Team to the Defense Information System Agency, assessing critical infrastructure risks to global undersea cable systems. Liu has extensive experience in the development of campus-sized data center infrastructure in the US, India, China, and Eastern Europe. Currently, Liu is spearheading the foundation of Virginia Beach Digiport in partnership with InfraPrime for the development of a more than 200-acre data center park in Virginia Beach.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be here today, and thank you again for you taking the time so we can discuss with you about an important topic on a global level. The late breaking news is from the policy development of former Vice President Joe Biden and his Climate and Clean Energy Task Force, who has been working profusely hard and making an announcement just yesterday to invest trillions in clean energy infrastructure. His ambition parallels with what the European Union is discussing as we speak, and data center clearly has been a beneficiary during the COVID-19 pandemic, as we see continued growth in new build of data center and new load growth. Global data center actually before the beginning of 2020 has been growing in numbers and in size for the past 3 decades since I joined this industry as a computer scientist gal in the 70s. Today, the digital services is part of our life. It's enabled by all the data center and the cloud computing, becoming a necessity to keep our society running. Especially in this time, for a few of us who actually have a mass shutdown for the second time that we all experienced to reduce the spread of coronavirus. So I wish all the audience there be safe, stay healthy, and we're all gonna get through this together. So thank you for joining us today. The fundamental pillars of data center is to be resilient. It's to support people like ourselves so we can access anything, anytime, and stay up in availability of resources, including the energy capacity, and also be elastic to support us human and machine users, which are pushing 40 billion in this decade. And according to the UN report, we will actually have more growth in many new megacities. The topic today for the webinar is Net Zero at Works for Virginia. Our aim is to provide you throughout this seminar series an alternative for affordable, sustainable data center. So the action is now yours to take to be socially responsible. It is a very simple concept and it makes good business sense. So maybe we can go to the slide to take a look at Virginia, and I will introduce you to 2 speakers today who have extensive experience about the Virginia Beach site and extensive experience about carbon-free energy design that would exemplify the UN Sustainable Development Goal. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Lou, who has a phenomenal career over 45 years, Lou. So you must have started at age 1, Lou, for all the extensive work that you have done in enriching the social community to bring forward new and innovative technology to build infrastructure. So it is absolutely a pleasure to actually have you here today to walk us through about how net zero can be working for our client. So let's go to the next slide. And Lou, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. I'm very, very glad to be here. I didn't start at 1, I actually started at 3. I was a late bloomer. So in Virginia Beach Digiports, we kind of believe that there is a new model emerging in regard to cloud regions and digital hub infrastructures across the globe. And that is, there's a move towards sustainable and, as you noted, socially responsible digital infrastructures, namely net zero. So we're trying to do our part in Virginia by developing a net zero data center park that will help to create a socially conscious and what we would call a digital ecosystem that will eventually attract a large number of global data center operators and subsea cables to the region. Now, we're already seeing evidence of this happening in that the 3 years that we've been involved in Virginia Beach, we have seen a lot of interest moving in that direction, especially in relation to its proximity to Ashburn, Virginia, which is the largest aggregation of data centers in the world. So, of course, this is also why we were especially excited about our relationship with InfraPrime, and we look forward to initially fielding approximately 40 megawatts of net zero data centers using their unique carbon-free energy technology. So this is no doubt, we believe, the future of digital infrastructures across the globe. Next slide. So when it comes to power, in Virginia Beach, we have multiple and very attractive renewable options for power in Virginia Beach. In fact, we now have substantial quantities of renewable natural gas that's available as a result of a $500 million investment in biogas supplies that are now in the region. And this is a product of a partnership between Dominion Energy, the largest energy provider in the region, and Smithfield Foods, who runs the largest pork producing products in the United States. The combination of the two is to supply biogas by capturing environmental gases that would normally leave the farms. There's a lot of details that we won't go into about this, but it's an amazing series of technologies. So this new and very high volume supply of biogas, we're talking about approximately 2.5 million metric tons of gas a year. This has created actually an opportunity to field carbon-free energy to local industries, and in particular to the data centers that we plan to develop in this data center park. So the capture of this biogas is approximately the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions that would be approximately taking 500,000 cars off of the road or planting about 40 million new trees. So we're talking about substantial quantities of renewable natural gas that would normally be escaping into the atmosphere. So an important note here, renewable natural gas, when it's used in conjunction with fuel cells to generate energy, that can not only lead to a carbon-free energy, but also a net negative carbon footprint. And this is a factor that is completely and totally unheard of in the data center industry, with the exception of some small pilots. But operationally, we don't see this in the market yet. And that's what we're going to try to change. So in fact, this 40 megawatt data center development that we're doing in partnership with InfraPrime, with a net negative carbon footprint, it could potentially eliminate 3 million pounds, or approximately 3 million pounds of CO2 equivalent in the atmosphere on a per annual basis. That's a significant amount of reduction of CO2 equivalent into the atmosphere. Now, this is also equivalent to about 350 million miles driven by an average car. It's also equivalent to about 22,000 homes electrical usage every year. And then in additive, we also have renewable wind generated supplies that are just offshore from Virginia Beach. And this will be the largest wind farm in federal waters in the United States. It'll eventually produce about 5.3 gigawatts of clean power. That's enough power to power about 600,000 homes. Next slide. So one of our criteria in our business model is connectivity for siting a data center park. So why Virginia Beach? Well, for one thing, it met all of our criteria for a successful data center park. It had the supplies of carbon-free energy. It had broad interconnectivity, which I'm going to describe. And it also had some really attractive and suitable land for the data center park. So, in fact, the plan to land the first subsea cable in the Mid-Atlantic, announced back in 2016 by Microsoft, Facebook, and Telxius, it really put Virginia Beach on the map. Otherwise, it was a kind of a backwater that not a lot of people in the data center industry were looking at. The second and subsequent cables solidified Virginia Beach as a really important destination now for international or intercontinental connectivity. Now, this connectivity was the initial reason why we targeted Virginia Beach, as this was the first subsea connectivity in the Mid-Atlantic region, and it avoided all the dense aggregation of other transatlantic cables in the New York, New Jersey, and Florida regions. And that was also important for the diversity of connectivity across the Atlantic. So Virginia Beach, literally sitting on the continental edge in the Mid-Atlantic region, it presented the opportunity to offer low latency connectivity for the businesses, financial markets, and digital cloud centers around the Atlantic Ocean and onto Asia. So now if we come forward about 4 years from 1916 when we first started in the region, the decision to develop in Virginia Beach was definitely validated. In fact, we now have 4 subsea cables. 2 that are operational, Maria and Brusa, Maria being the joint venture between Microsoft, Facebook, and Telxius, and Brusa, which is a Telefonica Telxius cable coming up from Fortaleza, Brazil. Maria, of course, coming across from Bilbao, Spain. And there are 2 additionals under construction. The Dunant cable, which is a Google cable in a joint venture with Orange Telecom of France, coming across from Saint-Hilaire, France. And the SAEX1 cable, which is quite unique in that it's the first cable that's going to come from Africa, in fact, South Africa, Cape Town, to connect directly to the continental United States in Virginia Beach. This cable is also in partnership with Telecom Italia Sparkle. So connectivity in Virginia Beach really opened the door for what we believe is new, clean, and sustainable data centers that can aggregate as well as enjoy this low latency transit to continental Europe, South America, and South Africa. This is almost unheard of type of connectivity that is low latency. So in addition, using a unique network architecture on the park that is designed by one of our colleagues, Lane Patterson, we're going to be able to automate the cross connections amongst the multitude of terrestrial and subsea trunks in the park. This is going to be tremendously important as we begin to populate the park with multiple data centers, and they need a lot of connectivity to the various options available to them, which are many. Next slide. Thank you. So I spoke about the land in Virginia Beach earlier. We were very, very fortunate to be able to locate and secure one of the last undeveloped tracts of land in the city of Virginia Beach. And actually, this land was perfectly suited for data centers. The land is adjacent to the Naval Air Station at Oceana, and it was under a Navy easement due to that proximity of air operations. We were able to work with the Navy to clear all the easement restrictions and develop a proposal for a data center park adjacent to them. So working with the city, we were also fortunate to have the land designated as a technology zone. This was a policy decision unanimous by the City Council that welcomed the development of data centers. So this provides for rapid permitting and rapid zoning of the existing land, which is mostly agricultural land. And we were also instrumental in helping to justify a 10-fold reduction in property taxes on data center equipment. You can't understate this This is an amazing reduction. It went from $4 per mil to 4 cents per mil because we were able to convince the city council and the mayor's office that in a normal operational cycle of a data center, about every 3 years, there's almost a wholesale replacement of equipment. And every 3 years, you would have an additional tranche of taxes that would come in on the personal property in the data center. And that if you looked at it over a 10 or 15 year period of time, it would net out more tax revenues to the city than simply holding it at $4 per mil. So if you couple that with an aggressive 40%, 40%, 40% accelerated depreciation schedule on the equipment, this made Virginia Beach the most competitive jurisdiction in the Commonwealth of Virginia for data centers. There is no one who stands out more than Virginia Beach. So collectively then, renewable natural gas, carbon-free energy supplies, the tax breaks afforded, investment incentives because we're sitting in a federal opportunity zone, the scalability of the land, and then the sustainability of the architecture that we're proposing, it all results in a triple net total cost of ownership for InfraPrime customers in Virginia Beach, but also other operators in our data center park. We believe this is an uncompromising offer. Susanna, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Lou. This is amazing in terms of just a very quick summary. What you have shared is accumulation of a career and a lifetime of the work and the leadership that you've done with your team. So in summary for the audience, what Lou is basically saying is at Virginia Beach, it really is a viable option, affordable, feasible, support the leadership in terms of what we're all trying to do in terms of do good to the environment, but at the same time be able to do well for planet, people, and for profit. So, and the site is actually immediately available, and teaming up with InfraPrime will be our second speaker, Alberto, who is the managing director. We'll talk a little bit in more detail regarding how the 40 megawatt was being planned between his leadership design that has already been proven and used by Microsoft, the hyperscaler, and also recently selected by the European Union Clean Energy Design for Net Zero, which then delivers zero carbon emission and waste to support the UN SDG goal. So Alberto, thank you for joining us from Europe today. Can you please share with the audience in a little bit more detail the design that you had in mind that in collaboration with Lou for his site?
With pleasure. Thank you, Susanna, for having me here. It's let's see then how this carbon-free energy architecture and design looks like in practice. Well, what you're seeing on the screen is the layout of an IPM Eco module. Is a 2 megawatt module with 2 megawatt IT load and a PUE of 1.1 to 1.2. Extremely efficient, therefore. This module could be powered by, as we have seen, by wind, by solar, or by renewable gas. We have chosen for this location renewable gas, and we will see later on why we made this choice. This module is powered by fuel cells and renewable gas because of the land efficiency of this solution, which I will show in the next slide. Here, I want to underline that this solution delivers 24/7 renewable power. It is extremely resilient because the module has a dual independent power input, and there is also a dual independent power input, energy input to be more precise, at the site level. As you can see, the primary energy source is the renewable gas. It goes into the fuel cells, the fuel cell turns into power, and that renewable power, which is a net zero power, is the primary source of the module. Okay. The grid acts as a backup. And as you can see or you cannot see actually, you don't see any backup generators. In every design of InfraPrime, we have eliminated the need for diesel backup generators. And the backup in this case is delivered by the grid. This design is also affordable. It's very important for us that we can couple and we can combine the economic competitiveness, so really affordability of the solution, together with carbon-free energy and the net zero footprint. When all these elements are combined together, then we call it a sustainable cost of ownership. Okay, you see from the footprint point of view that the fuel cell themselves are smaller than the module. It is feasible to build them and to have them on site. Okay. Now, as I said before, why did we choose this particular net zero or renewable energy source for the data center? From a land usage efficiency point of view, you can see from the picture the size different between the 1 megawatt data center, fuel cell, and solar PV. The fuel cells they take 125 times less land than a solar PV. Okay, and solar PV is 40 times more efficient than a wind farm. As you could see from the land layout shown before by you, there is no way we can fit so much solar power or wind power on site. Okay, so solar and wind are available in Virginia, but they must be off-site, and therefore the delivery of this carbon-free energy would be dependent on the grid. The fuel cells are the only solutions which can deliver carbon-free energy generated on-site, okay, satisfying both the power requirements and the energy requirements of a data center. Okay, for this is the main reason why we have selected this particular design, and I want to in the next slide just underline that in InfraPrime we have selected different configuration on our carbon-free building blocks, which can be tailored to the requirements of both our customers and of the location to deliver carbon-free energy for net zero data center, like in this case, in the case of Virginia Beach. So I'm very excited to provide this unique opportunity, which is new in Virginia. And with this, I give it back to you, Susanna.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Let's go into a time in our Q&A. We actually have one question comes up and it's specifically relating to one of your design, Alberto. The audience asks, in your design, since it's an option for the client using your design to use the grid as a backup resource, he is curious to know, how will the local utility, obviously in this case will be Dominion, charge you for the 2 megawatt grid standby services?
Mm-hmm. It's a great and very relevant question. As we know, the power cost when you're connected to the grid, they have two components. One you pay for the power, for the capacity, and the other one you pay for the energy, for the kilowatt hours or megawatt hours that you use. This design eliminates the energy bill, the energy part of the bill. Of course, you will have to pay for the service of being connected to the grid that will deliver you the capacity. That is not eliminated, but the cost reduction is really relevant because the energy part is usually the larger part of the bill. And I want to take this chance, and thank you for the question, to add one thing, that being connected to the grid and having an extra capacity, the data center will be able to bring services to the grid. And in the future, we are envisioning data center which will deliver services to the grid and be paid for that. So actually, it's not unthinkable that you will not have a bill from the grid, but you will have also bill to the grid, which will offset or even have a net income from running your data center and being connected to the grid.
Thank you for pointing out. I also like to invite Lou, who is the sustainable infra developer and the owner for the Virginia Beach Data Center Park, to perhaps add the comment to it, because you're the one driving the relationship with Dominion for the entire data center park. And the 40 megawatt carbon-free energy is only one, is an important aspect of it amongst the park. So perhaps you have some comment that you wanted to add, Lou, to the audience.
Yes, thank you, Susanna. We have been working with Dominion Energy from the very beginning. It's critically important, and when we started to build our business model and looking at the potential scale of the park, that we would have on tap at any point in time in our development cycle enough grid energy to supply the data centers. And Dominion Energy being very adept at doing this, especially in Ashburn, where they have brought a tremendous amount of power, they have been able to keep up with what we had considered our forecast of upwards of 400 megawatts, and really on the high end, potentially 600 megawatts of grid power, of which in a net zero environment, that would be backup power, that would be standby power, as Alberto had just mentioned. They are very receptive to the development of on-site generation of power and the output of that power to the grid. Of course, as a regulated utility, they have no choice but to welcome it and to pay for that power. Now, one of the things that has come about as a result of our relationship with InfraPrime is the notion that the park itself would actually underwrite the generation of power, that we would not just do it on a per data center basis, but potentially we would expand and centralize on the park the deployment of fuel cells to power any and all data center architectures that may come in from other customers. So effectively, we would become a power supplier and underwrite the capital cost of the development of such on the park and supply that to our customers, all the while, this is a key point, all the while completely eliminating the need for diesel backup generators. Having worked closely with the local communities in the area to tell them about the eventual development, you have a lot of local communities that are concerned about being close by with data centers, and they're particularly concerned about having the noise associated with diesel backup generators that are run once every couple of weeks for about 30 minutes. There are ways to mitigate that noise, of course, but it's still a concern for them, as is the nitrous oxide emissions from the diesel generators, though they're only running a short period of time. So the development of fuel cell provided energy in the park is something that the local communities would absolutely welcome, and we'd be very pleased to be able to deploy, for the first time ever, on a park level, renewable energy generated inside the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you, Alberto. Both of you clearly have shown your joint leadership and how well your team really worked together to bring a complete solution to the client. And what I found innovative about it is not so much just the technology, although there's definitely a lot of depth into it and a lot of design, a lot of hard work that gone into it that is very innovative and disruptive. But in addition to actually focus on technology, what I admire both of you is really very environmentally conscious, and at the same time, you bring new business model. So we have a few minutes remaining, so maybe this is a good time for Lou. I would really like you to repeat regarding the incentive that you have arranged with the local state authority, the tax incentive relating to the reduction to the audience. That is really a big deal, to bringing $4 down to 4 cents. Can you just summarize takeaway for the audience today? And then I'll go to you, Alberto. Perhaps you can also share with the audience in terms of the engagement model that you have arranged, that they can also assume that they can also enjoy all the benefits they hear today at Virginia Beach as a service. So Lou, I'll start with you first to summarize a takeaway for the audience today.
Yes, again, thank you, Susanna. This is a point that really needs to be stressed, and I'm glad you brought it up again. Back in 2016, I had noted earlier Virginia Beach was, and I don't mean it in a negative sense, but it's kind of a backwater from the standpoint of data center infrastructures, because there were no data centers in the city with the exception of one small one over in Norfolk. Working with the Office of Economic Development, with the City Council, with the City Planning Commission, and also with the mayor, we were able to educate them, and we did this over multiple months, actually taking them to some of the various data center infrastructure conferences, telecom conferences, to give them a sense of what a data center infrastructure would mean to their jurisdiction. We also introduced to them the fact that for every dollar of incentive that a municipality provides to a data center operator, they get $9.5 back in tax revenue. That is unheard of when you consider that a residential development costs the municipality, and a typical business delivers 1.57 cents or $1.57 to back in tax revenue. So we were able to convince the city council, and then have a unanimous decision by the city council and mayor's office to reduce the personal property taxes on data center equipment. These are the routers and servers and memory and so forth that operate inside a data center, from $4 per mil, $4 per $1,000 of value, down to 40 cents, 40 cents. And we showed them through the financial office of the city how that could return even more tax revenues to the city, because it incentivizes the data center operators to come there. And then when you couple that with the aggressive depreciation schedule, every 3 years when you're replacing the equipment, it has on your books effectively a net zero value. So it's a tremendous incentive for data center operators to be there. And then if you're looking at the investment behind the data centers, being in a federal opportunity zone, you can actually either completely eliminate or substantially reduce your capital gains taxes for any capital appreciation that your investment provides within that federal opportunity zone. So again, it's a great incentive. There's not a lot of sites in the country that can match with this. Of course, I tend to talk it up because I own it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. That was very comprehensive. So Alberto, I'm going to turn that over to you. And while you're doing that, there was a question coming from the audience. Maybe you can also pick it up and answer it in your summary for the takeaway for the audience. Would the facility team on site need any special skill? Because obviously you're working for some new innovation relating to how fuel cell is incorporated and how it basically works with a distributed power system on site to provide net zero for carbon-free energy data center design. So perhaps you can also answer that question in your summary and your takeaway, Alberto?
Yes, with pleasure. First, this question. There I can confirm, having built and sold data centers, fuel cells in my past lives, I can confirm that the maintenance of a fuel cell does not require any special skills, more advanced than the skills needed to maintain a diesel generator. I would even state that they're easier to maintain. So no special skills needed. Every good technician can take care of the fuel cells on site. And there are, thousands installed, even more around the world.
So the
for that question.
Right. So the skill set effectively and what it required to deal with the technology will be documented in a standard SOP, standard procedure for any data center operator. Is that what you meant, Alberto?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Adding the fuel cell does not add any technological complexity. It's a simple device. On the conclusion summarizing from an InfraPrime point of view, well, with InfraPrime, what we do is we enable the transition to a carbon-free data center. That's our mission. That's what we do every day. In addition to all the carbon-free energy and sustainable design that we have prepared, and the one that we have shown today for Virginia Beach, from a business model point of view, we eliminate the CapEx barrier of all these solutions by offering sustainable data centers as a service. So we do this together with our local partners and financial partners so that even the CapEx barrier is removed, and any customer can start deploying load as a sustainable cost of ownership tomorrow without thinking about CapEx.
So I'd like to thank the audience for joining us today. We're coming up on now half an hour. We're actually a few minutes over, so don't mind us, because there was a lot of material we covered. So thank you, Lou, and thank you, Alberto, for sharing your impressive work.
Thank you for listening to the Power 100 webinars, brought to you by InfraPrime.